Hello and welcome to Just Films and That, a podcast where we discuss films we think may be underrated, underappreciated, or we just want to talk about them. I'm Josh Hallam, and I'm joined by my co-host, Alice Oliver. Alice, how are you?
I'm pretty good, thank you, Josh. How are you doing?
I'm very well. It's Christmas. It's our Christmas episode, so we'll get into the film in a little bit. So, your first Christmas on the pod. Are you a Christmassy person? Do you like Christmas?
You know what? When I was younger, definitely. I definitely was. I think I was very lucky to, be given quite magical and sort of just lovely Christmases with my family. My parents were really good at it. My mum would always go all out with the decorations. And we lived in rural North Wales as well, so it would actually snow. Like, it would actually snow over Christmas and we'd have a white Christmas, so that was lovely. But as I've got older, unfortunately, the world has turned me cynical, and now I just kind of see it as, just as excess, and it's just too much, and there's so much plastic going to waste, and people buy each other disposable presents and, joke presents and stuff, and that I've just become a bit cynical in my old age. But I did hear Shakin' Stevens on the radio the other day, and that did put me in the mood a little bit. Are you Christmassy, Josh?
Well, it wasn't until you just heard that, until I just heard you absolutely decimate Christmas and the excess of Christmas.
No, there's certainly much to enjoy, and it's always wonderful to be around family.
Yeah, I'm quite Christmassy in the same way as you. As I've got older, it's much more about seeing friends and family and just having a nice time and eating and drinking everything in the world and then regretting it in January. So yeah, I would say I'm a Christmas person. What's like a normal Christmas in the Alice Oliver household?
Well, the past couple of years, it's been sort of quite mellow, quite, basic. So me and my husband will travel over to North Wales and usually spend the day with my mum and dad and my sister. So the past couple of years, it's just been a case of sort of waking up Christmas morning in our house, then driving over to North Wales for the 1 hour commute that is, but then hanging out with mum and dad. But then, because I'm the only driver in the family, it means I never really get to have a Christmas drink. But we are putting that to rights this year because we've hired a caravan. So we're going to stay over, which means I can have as many glasses of Avocat as I wish. What about you? Do you have like traditions or anything? Or is there anything that you always do over Christmas?
Yeah, so a normal Christmas for me is we sort of go to my other half's family on Christmas Eve. We spend Christmas Eve with them. We usually either go out for a meal or get some nice food in. My lovely girlfriend makes eggnog, and we usually watch a film, something either Christmassy or Pixar, that sort of thing. Have cake, eat too much. And the next morning we get up, do presents and breakfast, and we do the whole sort of food and all that stuff with that side of the family. And then on Christmas Day afternoon, we go to my mum and dad's, where we do the drinking. So we do the eating with her family and the drinking with my family, and all the cheese board and that bit, which is what I'm absolutely about, is the cheese board, as I probably said before. And then Christmas Day evening, we tend to just get slowly drunk and sing Christmas songs. Then it goes into Disney songs, and then we just sort of fall asleep. But we always start with a random question. But let's move on to let's do a Christmas question, a Christmas random question. So I was thinking, what can I do? So I was thinking, if you could pick a injury sustained by one of the villains in Home Alone, which injury would you pick?
That is a fantastic question. Now, naturally, none of them, as by their very nature, injuries unpleasant. But let me have a think. Which one's the? So I do love the old Hat of Fire, where his hat goes on fire and the fire's up, and he has to go head first into the toilet. That's enjoyable. I mean, Marv has some just terrific scenes, doesn't he? We've got him sliding around the paint. We've got bookshelves falling on him. People standing on nails. Oh, Josh, I don't know, so many to pick from. So
that's what I'd probably go. I'd probably go for nail through the foot.
Oh yeah, love a nail through the foot.
As much as that scene absolutely goes through me every time I've watched it, it really does, where he stands on a nail. It's probably the one I feel like you'd heal the quickest from, because it's just like a small puncture wound. Because I thought like iron in the face maybe, but no, You don't want to get in the face with anything. Handling the door handle that's been, warmed up with the electric fire thing. It's on your hands. You need your hands. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you need your feet, but your hands are probably more important, like in my opinion. So yeah, nail through the foot. I'm gonna go nail through the foot.
And that has made me recall the one where they climb in through the window and stand on the damaged baubles. So I think I'll pick that one because it's got a really festive feel to it.
So we've both gone foot related.
Yeah, listen, our feet are sturdy. They've got nice thick skin on them. They can take anything.
Plus, you spend most of Christmas sat on your ass, so it's plenty of time to put your feet up and let them heal.
Exactly.
So we'll move on to talking about the Christmas film that we've picked. So basically, neither of us, well, we've both picked this between us, haven't we? So we sort of were talking about films, classic Christmas films that that perhaps neither of us had seen because we wanted to talk about something new. We went through all the classics, like we just talked about Home Alone and Miracle on 34th Street, It's a Wonderful Life, all the big uns. And we settled on Gremlins because neither of us had seen it. You definitely not seen it before. That's right, isn't it?
So I had a bit of a kind of funny one with it. Like, I remember I was around my mate's house one time and it was on, and I think we were watching it, but I have no memory of it. I had no idea what was going on, and it was never a film that I was like, oh yeah, I love Gremlins. I just did not remember it at all. But I knew, I had a vague idea of what Gizmo looked like, and that was about it. But I think it is quite funny that, I mean, it's quite a popular film, isn't it? And it is one that many people have seen. I think it's interesting that it's just fallen off our radar for both of us.
Yeah, it's like kind of passed us both by because we're both kind of too young to have seen it when we were dead little. And it's kind of by that point it had entered the sort of cultural awareness and zeitgeist so much that maybe we just never been back to it, or maybe it's always been, like you say, maybe we just missed it. Maybe it's just missed it. But I think I had seen it as a child, but I have absolutely no memory of watching it. So as far as I'm concerned, I've not seen it. So what did you expect? So I mean, look, we normally do the plot synopsis at this point. If you don't know what Gremlins is about, a young boy from kind of small, wholesome American town. His dad buys him an exotic pet called a Mogwai as a Christmas present. Comes with a certain set of rules, such as don't get him wet, don't take him out into the sunlight or bright lights, and don't feed him after midnight. The rules are broken, and guess what? Chaos ensues. So, what did you kind of expect going in? Did you expect exactly what you got?
I think it actually sort of delivered a little bit more than what I was expecting in some regards. I was expecting something a bit more child-friendly. I mean, I appreciate that it is a child's film, but there's some really mad acts of violence in there. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wasn't expecting that. And it was quite funny in places, which I'm not sure if I was prepared for. And something that really stood out to me, and some of the, just kind of aesthetically, it was very interesting. But the opening scene where it's all like this, sort of dark, like gangster film, like a film noir sort of thing. He's like, I was walking around Chinatown, and he goes into this like creepy little shop, and he finds this exotic pet. But that scene I just thought was really interesting, and I didn't expect it to sort of be framed like that, I suppose. What were your expectations going in?
Yes, similar to you, really. I absolutely didn't expect the narration. And I suppose I was expecting sort of like your classic 80s family film with sort of elements of horror, so like a The Goonies or something like that, or that kind of thing. And I did expect kind of dated effects and maybe dated references and that sort of thing. But no, the narration's a funny one because I didn't expect the narration, and actually, it's weird. It's like it's not actually even needed. It's like it opens the film and closes the film, but it doesn't really add anything to the story. It's literally just there to kind of ease you in and ease you out, I guess. Like, I suppose it bookends the story, but I expected pretty much what I got. I agree with you. It was more adult, if you like, than I was expecting. It's certainly a lot more like gruesome and violent, but also more funny than I was expecting. So it's a strange one because really, in terms of its audience, it is quite a strange one because it's kind of a family film with elements of quite gory violence. And I believe that when it came out, it was a bit of a sort of talking point that I don't know if this on its own, I think it was this and Indiana Jones led to the creation of the PG-13. I don't know if that's completely right, but I believe that it led to the creation of the PG-13 certificate in America. Over here, I don't know if we already had 12. I know 12A came in for Spider-Man. But yeah, so it's strange because it is a little bit all over the place, but I expected more or less what I got. So what did you think of it?
I really enjoyed some elements of it. Like I touched on just then, sort of aesthetically, I thought it was really interesting. I feel like a lot of the special effects and a lot of the props were really impressive. There was one scene where I think it's all the sort of Mogwai eggs are in the young boy's bedroom and they're like getting ready to hatch and stuff, and they're all covered in slime, and there's this wonderful fog, just coming off of the floor and stuff. So there was lots of things like that I really enjoyed. Obviously Gizmo. Obviously Gizmo is the cutest thing ever, and oh my god, I want a Gizmo. And it's like that's exactly how I felt about like Pikachu and stuff. So you can see like that's the real draw for the kids, isn't it? And you want them to come away from that film going, I need to buy that toy. And it's like, oh, thanks guys.
Proper Baby Yoda, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I know, but yeah. We'll talk about Baby Yoda another time. But yeah, like the big ears, the big eyes, so cute. He just does like a little thing when they've got like a little voice, and you just go, oh, and it's like, oh, your heart can't help but break. Did you feel what they wanted you to feel about Gizmo?
So I mean, like you said, he's incredibly cute, but I think the Gremlins in general, so all of them as well. I mean, Gizmo, like you say, is the standout sort of cute one, but all of them, they look brilliant. And for me, that as much as you can tell that they are puppets, that really adds to the film's charm for me. I thought the film was absolutely chock full of charm, and I think that a lot of that is down to the puppetry of the Gremlins and the way they look. So not only is sort of Gizmo very, very cute, but the way each other one looks different. Like Stripe, they give him his own personality, and they give them all their own personality. And the way that they show them sort of going about the mischief around the town, like it's funny, and it's kind of it adds like a dark humor to it as well, because some of the stuff they do is quite dark. And I think what they do a really good job of is setting it up as this wholesome American town like you've seen before. Everyone knows everyone, and there's like one bank and one shop, and all the shops are built around the square. It's actually, because it's funny, I was watching it thinking, God, that looks a lot like Back to the Future. Like it looks a lot like the same town. It's the same set. So like, but like that kind of idea of everyone knows everyone, and like I love these like wholesome American comedies where there's like everyone's got like really like American names that are always called like Mr. Futterman or like Mr. Hickey, and there's a character in this called Mrs. Deagle. There might even be one called Mrs. Blumsky, and then you got a lead called like Billy, and it's like so American. It's like apple pie to its core. And then when you bring the Gremlins in and they're doing this sort of dark like mischievous things, like that's where it is dark, but that's also where the comedy comes from. But like the puppetry for the Gremlins, I mean, I'm always in awe of it. I've got a friend who's a puppeteer, and I'm always in awe of like what they can do, because it's so intricate and so fiddly. I just don't have the sort of the dexterity and the concentration for it myself, but I'm always in awe of how someone can make a puppet look good. Like CGI is great, but like a puppet, there's a real practical skill in that.
Oh, certainly. I'm a big fan of the puppet use as well, and it just ages better, I think, as well. Like if you were looking back at a film of that time, or if they had used CGI or tried to, generate it with a computer in the 80s, it just loses a bit. Like it dates so quickly, doesn't it? Like we're making such leaps and bounds, like even year on year. But with a puppet, and if you get it right, like you say, like if the design is there and it's all about the intricate little details and making each one unique, so it doesn't just feel like a blur of the same thing coming at you, especially because there's so many of them by the end as well. But no, yeah, really enjoyed the puppets. And just quickly touching on something that you said before about like that wholesome American town, it's like towards the end, or when the Gremlins are wreaking havoc on the town, like really just doing some crazy chaotic things, the police are like, oh my God, but it's Christmas, like this. And like they just can't believe that what's happening is happening in their town, and how dare they have the audacity to do it over Christmas, our holiday.
Yeah, you're right, absolutely. And like you say, back to the effects, that the kind of low grade nature of the effects, like something like Indiana Jones or Ghostbusters, all these sort of your classic 80s films, as much as you can tell that they have aged, I think that with something like this, it really adds to the charm. So, when Stripe melts at the end, like it looks, like you say, it looks a bit ropey, but I think that low grade nature of it, that practical nature, like adds to the charm much more than, say, like bad CGI. As much as it has aged, it's not aged anywhere near as badly as something with bad CGI in it. So that's something I really like. I don't know, it gives it a sort of a certain something, a classic feel to it, like something like Labyrinth or anything with the Muppets Christmas Carol. People love puppets.
And it is, like you say, about that charm, and almost like a sort of a bit of that kind of childhood wonder sort of feeling as well. I think kind of towards the beginning of the film, Billy, I think it is, he's like running through the streets. I don't know if he's trying to get to work or something, but he's like running through the streets, and like everyone's kind of saying, "Hi, Billy." And there's like this really energetic music playing, like you're about to go on an adventure. And I really noticed that, and I was like, oh, this is making me excited for what's about to happen. And that I thought was really interesting, and that also kind of helps with the feel of a Christmas film as well, doesn't it? You want it to be, a bit magical, a bit sort of wonder-like. And something that I noticed it did as well, and it made me realise that other Christmas films do this too, but is referencing other Christmas films. So very often there would be another Christmas film on the TV, or they'd be like walking past a shop and it would be on there. Just so many references to these other Christmas films. So I wonder sort of what the aim behind that was, really.
I think it's to draw you into the whole. Quite often, it's I think in this, it's they watch. I mean, there's a couple they watch, I think, but in this, do they watch It's a Wonderful Life?
Mm-hmm.
So like that's one where it's like that is your classic Christmas film of a wholesome town where everyone knows everyone. So I think they do that to draw comparisons. Like it happens in. They do it in Home Alone. In both Home Alones, they watch It's a Wonderful Life when they like they're either in a hotel room or in a house, and one of them they're in Paris and one of them they're in Miami, and they're watching It's a Wonderful Life. I think they do it to draw comparisons, but it's interesting you talk about the music then, because that's something else I really like, because they do that thing of they mix it with really emotive classical music as well as classic Christmas songs, but there's also some like really 80s synth led like tension building music in there. So I thought that was quite interesting. Again, as much as that synth style is quite dated, it added to the overall sort of charm of the film for me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, I definitely agree. In terms of the aesthetics as well, I was just thinking there was a real sort of like prominent and intentional use of shadow a lot of the time. Like a lot of the time the characters' faces were in shadow, or like the action was happening sort of just out of the light and in the shadow. There's one scene I think where he's in the classroom and he takes, what is it he takes to his teacher? Is it the other Mogwai?
It's where I think it's one of the other Mogwais when they're in their like they're like not caterpillar state, but when they're in their cocoon type thing, yeah.
Yeah, so he takes it to his teacher in the classroom, and there's blinds on the window, and you see the blinds kind of reflect, the shadow of the blinds on their face, and that was just ongoing throughout. And I did wonder if that was maybe because of the Mogwai and the Gremlins aversion to light, and it was kind of just sort of playing off that. But it certainly, it was always intentional, definitely.
Something I really liked about it, it's quite, relatively speaking, compared to films these days, it's quite low stakes. So like a lot of films now, it's like the world is going to end, the universe is going to end, every big blockbuster is the world is going to end, or the city will be destroyed, or that sort of thing. But this is just kind of like, well, we better catch them, or the town and that, like, the town will be destroyed, but then it'll go light anyway, so they might not be okay. Like, so I quite like that idea of like not everything is riding on it. It's just kind of a little adventure. It's the same with a lot of other classic films like Stand By Me or E.T. or that sort of thing. It's a low stakes sort of, what's the word, like contained. That's the word. Sorry, that's the word I'm looking for. It's a contained world where there's not much outside of it. And this has happened, and then it's resolved, and then everything goes back to the equilibrium, and everything's back to normal. Everything's just lovely again. It's not, oh my God, the world has ended, and we're going to set up 700 sequels.
One of the things that I found interesting is that nobody seems kind of surprised by the creatures themselves, or particularly curious in kind of where they came from or how they work scientifically, or, you know, what their culture is, or, you know, it's all just kind of very, they turn up and they're just like, oh, guess we better get rid of them. And it's like, but you don't even know what it is. You don't know where this has come from. Is this come from an alien planet? And everyone's kind of casual in that regard. And the mum, especially the mum character, she's great. I think she provided quite a lot of the comedy for me. Like when she hears the noise upstairs, because he's got all those things in his bedroom, which is just crazy, right? So all these eggs, all these cocoon things, and the mum hears the noise. She grabs a freaking kitchen knife, and she looks like something out of Psycho, like ready to go up the stairs and stab these things to death. And then obviously you get this fantastic kind of violent sort of montage of her kind of killing them all, and one of them goes in a microwave and she does that. Like really quite brutal, eh? But they are little horrors, aren't they? They are just, it's like they do just embody chaos, and there's no taming them, and there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to what they're doing. And they're just, but then they're getting like drunk in the bar and stuff, and like eating loads of nuts and that, like really embracing the human culture, I think. I assume that they're aliens. Is that
well, yeah, I was going to ask you that. It's funny. It's like it's quite indicative of the style of filmmaking at the time, which is like a lot of it was just fantastical, and it just is what it is, and you don't need to ask questions. Whereas now, if they made this now, it would be absolutely hammered with exposition about what they are. And it's quite funny you say that. Like I always assumed they were like aliens, but are they aliens, or are they animals from a sort of distant part of the world that hasn't quite been discovered yet? Like what are they? Like it's funny you say that. Like, and I do feel like if this was made now, you'd know what they are, but it almost doesn't matter what they are, because they're just gremlins. Well, Mogwai, they're Mogwai, but you know, they're called gremlins. But I think that's quite interesting. And like you say, they are funny, and they do funny things. Like they do get drunk in a bar, and they do seem to be able to talk, but not fully talk. So like that's why it's like, are they more alien than animals? Because not really any animals can talk, apart from, you know, parrots, but they're clearly not birds. You know, it's a strange thing. I would probably go with you and say alien.
That was where my brain went initially, and they're very technically skilled as well. You know, they know how to turn off the traffic lights. They know, you know, what a box is and what the wires are, and they know, you know,
how to cut. Don't they cut the phone lines?
The phone lines, yeah.
They're more technically proficient than either of us. I couldn't cut my own phone line.
I have no idea where to start. I don't even know where to go.
I'm absolutely buggered if our water goes, because I don't even know where my stopcock is.
Yeah, exactly. But they seem to be kind of just really on the ball with all those sort of things. So that was really interesting. And you know, just kind of wonder is that something that they've learned very quickly, or, you know, just preconceived knowledge that they had, or does it just not matter at all? Which is probably the answer,
probably that,
right?
isn't it? It is. It doesn't matter what they are. They learn quickly, and they are what they are for the purposes of a plot. But it works. I didn't come away feeling unsatisfied that I didn't know what they were. I just thought it's quite funny that the way we're thinking now is much more about, like, it's much more questionable. It's much more like, well, what are they? You know, back in the day, it was like, well, they're just there. That's what they are.
Yeah, but now they would be like some awful effect of climate change or something.
Yeah.
So just something that I was looking to touch on as well. So the young girl who is sort of Billy's love interest, that character. So is it like they're walking, it's quite near the beginning of the film, and I think Billy's walking her home or something, and he's like, why don't you smile around Christmas, or something like that, and she's like, my dad killed himself, or something.
Yeah.
Like something really, really dark. Her backstory is like really, really dark.
So yeah, so like that's something I wanted to touch on as well, which is some of her, particularly that character's dialogue. And this is where the script, the film falls down a little bit, is some of the script and some of the dialogue. So I think what you're referring to is at the beginning, he says like, why are you always so down around the holidays? And she talks about a really high suicide rate over the holidays. And
Yes.
and you watch it and you kind of go, oh, shit. wasn't expecting that. And then later on, in a gap in the action, they end up in some sort of disused shop or disused bar, and she does this big dialogue, a big monologue about her dad dying whilst dressing up as Father Christmas and
Oh, that was
getting
it,
either
wasn't
getting
it?
stuck in the chimney or having a heart attack whilst trying to come down the chimney. And it's a bit, I suppose what I'm trying to say is it's a bit tonally all over the place, because both those scenes of dialogue, they come from absolutely nowhere and they don't fit with the rest of the film. And I know that when I was reading around the film and stuff, what I could find, I think someone, whether it was the director or the writer, either insisted that was kept in or someone wanted to take it out. And I do feel like that, particularly the second bit, should have been taken out, because it's not. It takes the wind out of the film, and you just kind of, as the audience, go, "Oh, where did that come from?"
I think there's not enough happens with it really to. But I don't know though. Like, is it important to draw attention to these things over the holidays? Maybe it is. Maybe that's what the film's trying to do. But no, I mean, I agree that it feels like a real kind of. It feels really jarring.
Yeah,
because it just doesn't match with anything else you've said. And it is horrific. I'd forgotten that those were the exact details that he got stuck in the chimney, and then
but the problem.
yeah.
Do you know what the problem is, right? And you're right. Perhaps films should talk about this, but there's a way to do them, right? There's a way to address these issues. Now, I'm not sure back then they were trying to address that issue, the issue of sort of mental health. I think what they were trying to do is give her a backstory, but without enough time to do it. And the problem with that second story is it's funny. Like her dad. This sounds insensitive, but she's giving this emotional monologue about her dad dressing up as Father Christmas, trying to squeeze down the chimney and dying, and then his body starting to smell. And I was watching it, and I didn't really know how I was supposed to react because it was such a tonal shift. So my immediate reaction was to kind of laugh. I don't know if I'm just an absolute heartless bastard, but I don't know, it's just really, it's so whether, I don't know if I laughed because I don't mean it was funny in itself. It's almost so awkward that it's funny, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's the context of it. I think in a different context, of course, that would be very serious or very moving, or something that you really would kind of take on board. But because of the context here, it does just feel very out of place, and it doesn't. Like, what is it meant to be doing? Is it enhancing her character? Is it, like you say, is it just trying to give her this, a reason to hate Christmas? And of course, that is a very valid reason to hate Christmas. But yeah, very strange in a PG. And I would agree with you that it was difficult to understand how to kind of absorb that bit of information.
So that's a really interesting point, and that's something I want to come on to now if we talk about things that we sort of didn't like. So we talked about, the script is a little jarring at points. I think one of the reasons for that is the overarching problem with the film, and it doesn't make the film a bad film. I really enjoyed the film, but is that it's not quite sure who it's for. It's not quite a family film. It's not quite an adult film, and it's a bit all over the place in terms of it's wholesome and it's funny, but also at times it's really violent and really gory. And it also, there's like jokes in it about the menopause. Like they say something about mum's change or something like that. I can't remember what it is, but it's like not that kind of change or something like that. And it's clearly that what they're getting at is it's a menopause joke. And then it's like, yeah, and then you've got like really grotesque scenes like Stripes kind of he melts in the sunlight, or when the gremlins escape, one of the gremlins escapes and kills the chemistry teacher. It is a bit all over the place, and that just leaves it being a little bit jarring. I think the legacy of the film is very much like if you liked it at the time, or if it's a film that's within your sort of wheelhouse, in like one of these films that gets passed down from family members, then I think you grow a real love for the film. But if you watch it the first time, as we both have as adults, without any real connection to the film, I felt like it left me a little bit like, I don't know, it's like not for me, but it's not for kids. So it was a bit all over the place tonally, I suppose. What did you think?
Yeah, no, I do agree. And I'm not, other than our Christmas film, I'm not sure kind of really what genre you'd put it in, because it could be horror, it could be a kids' film, but then the violence really and some of the topics that are covered does feel like it's maybe not so much geared towards kids, but because of how Gizmo is, and it's obviously a child-led cast, the kids are the main characters. But I don't know, maybe kids in the 80s were just a little bit darker than we are. Maybe we're not punk enough, Josh.
Just a bit harder. Kids are just a bit harder.
Yeah, maybe. One thing I did notice, there was a few odd cuts and continuity errors, like just the odd thing where you'd have, two characters would maybe be stood next to each other in one shot and then it cuts and then their position was all wrong. So there was a few just kind of mistakes like that I noticed. Not enough to put me off the film at all, but then that made me wonder if it was rushed in any way, which is usually the case. And then I'm, would be curious to know then what rushed it, who was trying to kind of force this through before it was ready. But other than that, I don't think there was really anything that I disliked. Like I didn't come away from it thinking, whoa, what a film I've just watched. But it definitely was Christmassy. There's plenty of sort of Christmas themes going on, Christmassy kind of scenes and, all the music and the film references. So it did make me feel a little bit Christmassy. But apart from that, I don't think there was anything that I particularly didn't like, but it didn't blow me away. But I suppose it, like with most kids' films, they're not going to blow you away. It's just about whether you fell in love with that when you were at a very impressionable age, and that seems to be, a lot of what it is.
That's it, isn't it? It's like if you watch this at the right time, you'd absolutely love it. Like the way that, like, I suppose people of our generation might absolutely love something like Hocus Pocus or Jumanji. Like since the new Jumanji film, the first of the new ones with The Rock and Karen Gillan and stuff came out. The first one, is it Welcome to the Jungle? I really like that one. Maybe. I think it's a really, really good all-round sort of film. So after that came out, I went back and watched the Robin Williams one. And then, it's actually not that good. Like, I didn't enjoy it that much. It wasn't what I was expecting. I'd seen it as a kid and remember loving it fondly. So maybe it's that type of situation of a film that's very much just loaded with its nostalgic baggage type thing. But I agree with you. There's nothing I didn't like. I would watch it again. I'd certainly watch the next one. It didn't blow me away. It was a bit tonally all over the place, but it was absolutely chock full of charm.
The woman was a good villain, wasn't she?
Mrs. Deagle.
She was good.
She's a funny one because she's another one that is an example of the script being a bit weird. So she's a great villain. The actress is really, really good. She gives a really good villainous performance. But there's 2 points I want to make about that character. Number one, she wants to get a dog put down because it smashed a bit of a snowman, which is top-notch villain behavior, but also a little strong, which is an example of where the script is a bit all over the place. Number two, and I checked this, and I checked this again, and I checked it again, and if anyone can show me that I'm wrong, but that actress is 47 years old at the time of this film.
Okay.
And they make her seem like a woman in her 70s who needs a stair lift to get down the stairs. And honestly, I must have sat there for it. It was like my main bit of research was going, she can't be 47.
Oh, wow.
But she is. It's like that, but that's mad. I mean, maybe that's just a testament to what a great performance she gives sort of physically and vocally.
Yeah, maybe. I did think she was great. She was, like, we've talked about it before, but these mustache twirling, just there's no mistaking who the villain is, sort of thing. And she wants to put the dog down, and then that's just funny because it's the exact opposite of the save the cat moment. Because as soon as anybody said that they want to bring harm to animals, especially for such a silly reason as well, it's just so you instantly know you need to hate this character.
You do. So we'll move on to talking about the critical reception. Now, we've picked this together, and neither of us have picked it from the point of view of being underrated or anything like that. We've just picked it because we wanted to watch a lovely Christmas film that neither of us had seen before. So let's talk about if we think it's appropriately rated and deserving. If anything, let's see if it's deserving of being a classic, I suppose. So to give you a general idea, IMDb gives it 7.3 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes audience give it 78%, and the critics on Rotten Tomatoes give it 85%. So, pretty high scores. Do we think that's fair?
Yeah. So that IMDb score is probably where my head was at. I was thinking kind of 7, low 7. That critics' choice, the critics' score is
pretty high, that, isn't it?
Into the 80s.
Yeah, yeah, that's higher than some of the that might be higher than some of the other ones we've done that we've picked as classics. But
Yeah.
I mean, it is definitely. We both knew going into it was a classic. Is it deserving of being a Christmas classic?
I think so, because it's always fun to have a Christmas film that's doing something a little bit different. And for all the Christmas films out there that, you know, just do kind of follow the same old tropes, and I'm not saying that's bad, but it is refreshing to get something that's just like grotesque at the same time. So I kind of enjoyed that, and it sort of made the whole thing a bit funny in itself.
Yeah.
And I do understand, like, I think I understand the hype around it.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm the same as you. I think it's nice to have a Christmas film that has a certain look. It creates a nice little self-contained world where you know the rules. I mean, the whole film is literally built on you knowing the rules. It looks brilliant. The puppetry and the way it looks and the effects, even though it's clear that it has aged, that hasn't affected my enjoyment of the film. It had chock full of loads of charm. Definitely worth its place as a classic Christmas film for me.
Yeah, and I think
Definitely.
if somebody asked me, would I recommend it? I would say yeah. I think definitely worth a watch at least once, for sure.
Well, there we go. Another Christmas episode for you. We will be back next week with just a normal episode, so we'll look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, if you do want to get in touch with us, the email address is filmsandthatpod@gmail.com, and we're on all the social medias if you just look for just Films and That Pod. I think all that remains to say is thank you very much for listening to us this year. Thank you very much for sticking with us. We know it's been a bit of a mad year for everybody, and we hope that listening to us has brought you any kind of entertainment or joy or anything like that. And I think all that's left to do is wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and let's hope that next year's a better one. And we will see you next week. Alice Oliver, thanks very much for joining me as ever.
Thank you so much, Josh. Pleasure as always.
And it's cheerio from me.
Bye.